Make some noise for your host, Kid Copious.
What up, perps? Kid Copious back in the bunker, Purple State Party. You know how we roll. Just here. Another critique the week here. I mean, obviously, a couple big stories. You know, we had the tragic death of George Floyd at the hands of a police officer. I know a little bit about police brutality, believe it or not. I'm as white as a piece of Wonder Bread, but, you know, for me back in the day, it was always, I was driving while different. You know? That's just how it was. You know? And I really feel for him and his family. You know, it sucks when this kind of thing happens, you know? And, you know, there's always a rush to judgment, and I'm not here to, you know, pass judgment on anybody. I just, you know, I really wish the other officers had, like, got that guy off of him, man. You know, because all of this, man, the burning down of cities, all of this could have been avoided. But, you know, as I look through it and try to figure out, you know, the facts in the case, try to, you know, figure out what really happened, I you know, as usual, you know, I stumbled across, you know, the media, you know, especially the left-wing media, doing what they always do. These are journalists. These are people who understand the power of words. They understand the difference between died in police custody and killed by the police. They understand the inflammatory nature of the words that they choose. And as a gun rights advocate, you know, I've spent a lot of years, decades even, you know, reading about how every time a gun is used in an evil way, that makes the news. But whenever a gun saves somebody, barely a blip. I remember a story a long time ago. It was in the NRA magazine, and it talked about a family sitting there watching TV when a guy high on drugs with a machete just crashed through their sliding glass door. And fortunately, the homeowner had a gun nearby. You know, this was in the days before you kept him locked up and everything, so it was just in a drawer, and he pulled out his gun and shot the guy. And it was reported by the very local, that small, I'm trying to show you that small, that was the paper that reported it, and I wouldn't even have known about it if it wasn't for it being in, I believe the column was the Armed Citizen in the NRA magazine. And, you know, every month they would have 5 or 6 articles about guns being used, you know. And that's the same thing that goes on in this country with our media when it comes to the police, you know. The police are out there every single day. I have no idea how many police officers are. I know it's a unfair comparison to compare what, you know, that a-hole did, or any of the other a-holes out there, you know, that abuse their authority or use excessive force and somebody ends up dead. I know they got a tough job. And I know a lot of times, like, they're in a position where they don't know what the outcome's going to be, and they need to seize control. And sometimes seizing control ends up with people being dead. But when the media only reports these kind of stories of, you know, a clear-cut violation of somebody's rights, or a clear-cut excessive force, or something, you know, that just, you know, looks bad, they rush on it. And then, you know, sometimes the story takes a turn, and it turns out that the police officers acted in their best interest, to save their own lives. And the media doesn't like to go back and explain those kind of things. They don't like to explain that, you know, an officer was firing his gun while moving backwards, and the suspect was obviously moving forward. They don't really like to publish the fact that, you know, witnesses come forward that back up the police officer. They just kind of like to report that, oh, he was let off. They like to stoke it because they have an agenda. And the media can craft whatever agenda they want by choosing what stories and what words. You know? I know from my own case that a lot of times, you know, I hadn't done anything wrong. And I would be pretty defiant because I hadn't done anything wrong. And how dare you, you know, search my car? How dare you get me out of my car? How dare you drag a bandana around my neck, choke me, and then slam me to the pavement? I didn't even do anything. You know? But I was lucky. I was lucky because as my lights were going out, other cops pulled the police officer off me. And ultimately I let it go because back in the day, it just, I don't know. Back in the day, we didn't realize all the options we had, I guess. That's sort of where I'm going with this. But when they misreport things or they report things using certain words and it leads to cities being burned, you know, I don't see how anybody can defend that. I don't think when somebody is holding themselves up as a tower of virtue or a watchdog and they report things the way they want to report it to serve an agenda, I don't think that does us any good. And we need to start recognizing that. We need to start recognizing that, you know, that's what they do. They pick and choose the stories. They want it to look like white officers kill blacks every day. I mean, some of the things that are being said, you know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Inner city violence claims more lives. Black on black crime, you know, that takes place in the so-called ghettos or slums of cities where the politicians just ignore it. They keep sending checks that are barely enough to get people by. They rig the system to keep people down and let them kill themselves. I mean, look at Chicago. I mean, last Memorial Day weekend, like 50 people were shot. And that's a democratically controlled city, toughest gun laws. Nothing works. And the reason nothing works is because they create a wall. The media and the left create a wall between minorities and police officers so that the two sides are never going to come together. And if they do come together, nobody freaking reports it. So all we get is force-fed this one opinion, this one viewpoint of the world. And I'm not trying to excuse anybody. I'm going after the media and the media alone because those are the only facts. The facts are right in front of us on how they sell these stories. They want to keep pushing narratives that it's a protest, even though it's just a riot. They want to pretend that the anti-fascist groups are not behaving worse than the fascists themselves. They don't want to admit to, like, look, piles of bricks were lined up. Why? Who? Who did that? Who did that? Who stoked that fire? I believe it was the left and the media. I think they're the ones who stoked that fire. And then they purport that they're the side, the media and the left are the side that is going to protect the minorities. You know, they go out of their way to try to paint police officers as all racist. They try to paint all Republicans as racist. They try to paint the President of the United States as racist, even though if you look at numbers, he's pretty pro-black. Done a lot for them. You know, maybe more so than any other president in history, except for maybe Lincoln. You know? And yeah, these people should be out there. And you know, I understand, like, the raising the awareness of the ongoing problem of police brutality. But take it from a white guy who's, like, 3 times at least. Three that I remember. You know, I saw it. I felt it. It doesn't just happen white officers on black suspects. It doesn't work that way. And the guy was immediately fired. The other 4 officers that were there were fired. And now the officer who caused this whole thing, he's being charged. Burning down a Target, looting the College Hall of Fame in Atlanta, even attacking stupid ass CNN. That doesn't change anything. It just makes the problem worse, and that's what the media wants. That's what they want, because it's an easy story. I know. This is my 13th week here, and I've pretty much had my subjects handed to me. But there is a pressure to come up with a story that people are going to click on, people are going to read, people are going to share, people are going to talk about. I get it. But you can't just manufacture stories. You can't whip people into a needless frenzy. Look what you did with coronavirus. Needless frenzy. And then look at the Democratic response. They're telling us that we need to stay indoors and protect ourselves. But yet, they're making decisions that send sick patients to elderly care facilities where the weakest, the most vulnerable people live. Those are the kind of decisions they make. And then they distract us by reminding us, oh, Trump's a racist. Or Trump's a mean guy. Yeah, Trump is he is what a lot of people say he is. But he loves America. And he's putting America first. And I think that's something that we can learn from here, because it doesn't seem like the other side is putting America first. They're not putting Americans first. Where the Democrats hold power, we're seeing the most tyrannical shutdowns. We're seeing people being arrested for going to the beach. We're seeing all kinds of just bad decisions and mismanaged responses. We got to take note of that. We got to take note of the side that's really making the mistakes. Yeah, I mean, there are bad apples in both political parties. And man, to be honest with you, I mean, the simple way to say it is, I wish the Republicans would just drop the KKK and that whole group of people, the way they think. Just drop them, let them vote for somebody else. Democrats should do the same thing. Take your socialists, dump them. Antifa, dump them. Anarchists, dump them. We need to. Intolerant religious people, the Republican, just get rid of it. We need to move to the middle. We need to look at things in an honest, unbiased way. Or we're going to have cities burn. Or we're going to have the devastation of the lockdown. We can't keep letting the media write the story, because we have to realize that this just makes it easy for them. They caused the fire. They stoked the fire. Then they get to talk about the fire. Then, when it's all said and done, they could blame somebody for the fire, even though they had a hand in starting it. Sometimes they're not the one that lit the match. Sometimes they're the one who poured gasoline on it. Sometimes they're the one who brought the wood. But that's what they're doing. And the media does it for one side and one side only. Yes, people can argue we have Fox News. I cannot speak on Fox News because I do not watch them. I don't. I used to get all of my news from CNN, but they've become incredibly biased. Nowadays, I look at Yahoo, to be honest with you, and as soon as I'm done with the article, I read the comments. Because I'm looking for the middle. I'm looking for the truth. I want to know. I don't want to just say, oh, the police killed another black man. Well, I want to know, did they just kill him? Or did he die in custody? What was going on? In this case, I think it's entirely possible that he might have not even done the crime or done the crime on purpose. He apparently, the police were called because he was passing a counterfeit bill. Who's to say whether he was or he wasn't? And if he was innocent, of course he's going to resist to some degree. He'll be nice and cordial. But once those cuffs go on, I know how it feels, man. You're like, whoa, wait a minute now. I didn't do anything. We should have figured this out by now. I didn't do anything. It wasn't me. You know? Like, wait, stop. And things go from bad to worse. You know? What would you do if you were put in handcuffs for something you didn't do? You know? And that leads to bad things. That leads to bad things. That leads to tempers flaring. But this was not, at least for what we know right now, this was not just a racist cop randomly killing a black man. But that's how the story was sold. That's why the crowds are so worked up. You know? Because those crowds aren't looking around and seeing that nobody's supporting this. Nobody was defending the officer's actions. Some people were waiting to see. They were silent. Trump immediately launched an investigation into it when it came to light. But nobody sat around and waited for that. They just rushed to judgment, and they were pushed that way by one side and the media that they control. I mean, of course they do. And we're going to see the same thing soon when it comes to what's happened with Hong Kong and China. Because Hollywood, then that includes TV and movies, and even the music industry, they make a lot of money over in China. Why do you think the NBA banned people from having signs in support of Hong Kong? You know, but that's a separate video, and that's coming right after this one. When you look at the left and you look at the Chinese and you see how it all lines up, you know, they're ending the autonomy of Hong Kong. It doesn't matter how you dress it up. You have to look at history. After World War I, Germany was punished. Then Hitler rose to power. He secretly rebuilt the military. And then he started taking back lands. And Europe and the rest of the West kind of said, well, you know, it used to belong to them. So, okay. And it kept going. And he kept taking more. And we, the Brits, the French, they all said, well, you know, we don't really, we don't, you know, we still remember what happened in World War I. Maybe it's just best we let him have it. And how did that turn out? Because by 1939, we had a world war. Millions died directly because of that war. And then indirectly in the fallout. People who were killed in East Germany. People who were killed by the then Soviet Union. And then that led to the conflicts in Korea and Vietnam, where, again, we were trying to stem the flow of communism. Because we knew what happened. We know what happens if you let tyrants grab a hold of one chunk of land and you say or do nothing about it. And that's what just happened. China just grabbed Hong Kong. Now, apparently, they're massing troops along, I believe, the Indian border. What happens if they decide that Hong Kong isn't enough? They want more. What happens if, like Hitler, they decide that the West is soft? What could happen? Who do they move on? They move on Japan. They move on South Korea. They move on India. They've got a pretty strong foothold in Africa, so who knows where they can go from there. And don't lie to yourselves. These are not benevolent people that run the communist China. They don't care what religion you are. That gets in the way of allegiance to the state. They certainly don't care about your orientations or your nationalities. They don't care. I mean, we have been sold a false bill of goods on China. They are an evil empire. That's what they are. And we're going to start hearing about how Trump's wrong. And we're probably going to hear how it's racist. And we're going to say how it's going to plunge us into a depression. But you know what? We're already in one. So maybe this is the time. Maybe this is a time where we have to stand up and we have to suffer for long-term success. Because we can't allow China to continue to operate the way it does. We can't. We can't have them at the center of our supply chain. We can't keep sending people over there, companies over there, to have our secrets stolen. We can't. We know what's going to happen. Let's not pretend. Let's not pretend that things are going to be good for Hong Kong. I mean, they're being arrested. You're not allowed to speak out against the government. The Antifa, why don't you go over to China and try protesting? Why don't you start throwing some bricks through some government buildings? Try it. Because they'll just shoot you. They don't even remotely play. They're not benevolent. They don't care about human rights. They care about money, and they care about power. That's certainly true of the Democrats. But, you know, I'm glad that Trump's the one who got into office. I didn't vote for him. I thought it was a big joke, but he's proven me wrong. You know, he's proven me wrong. And ever since he's gotten in, we've just seen the ugly side. I mean, we see censorship out of what's supposed to be public forums. We're supposed to have debate in this country. We're supposed to accept that people have a different opinion, and we should talk about it, because maybe if we discuss things without it always being sound bites and always being a media-driven story, if we could just talk about things, maybe we could find some common ground. Because that's what we have to have. We have to have a common ground at some point. But we can't. We can't when Facebook or Twitter or Instagram censors Trump for saying that he's going to send the troops into Minneapolis, and once the looters start, so do the bullets, or some words to that effect. They censor that. But then Kathy Griffin gets to say this kind of nonsense. But why does she say that nonsense? I mean, that could be considered a crime. I mean, that's a very specific threat against a very specific person, and a specific method is laid out for doing it. So but she's allowed to do it. And if they censor it, they'll say, free speech, free speech. But when the commander-in-chief basically sends out a warning that, hey, if I have to send the military in there, you know, people are going to die. It would be regrettable. But what are you supposed to do? This country has been ravaged by the effects of the coronavirus, the shutdowns. And now we have cities breaking out in flames because the media fails to provide context for their stories. They want these fires so they could talk about these fires. They don't have to worry about, well, what are we going to talk about tomorrow night? Because we'll just talk about the fires tomorrow night. That's what they care about. Ask yourself this. What's the benefit of showing a high-speed pursuit? They don't have any advertising dollars. They're not advertising during the police pursuit, right? So they're not necessarily making money off of it, but they're getting views. And as somebody who's on YouTube, that's all it's about. It's about getting views, you know? And that's something I hope I never succumb to, because I don't want to lie and manipulate to get views, you know? I really wanted to get on here and try to bridge a gap, man. I wanted to talk about how awesome it is that we have a person like Candace Owens in the world. A young black female who's leading a movement away from the Democratic Party. We're finally talking about that. You know, black politicians have left the party. You know, people like Kanye West are starting to realize, hey, I don't need to be told who to vote for. See, that's the kind of thing that just shakes everything up. And that leads to change. But we can't if everything's going to be censored and people are going to lose their job over jokes or expressing opinions that aren't popular. We need to be able to talk about these things. We need to be able to even ask questions just to get to know what's going on the other side. But you can't. You know, I watch an associate of Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, and he tries to ask people, like, what is it that Trump did that was so racist? And nobody can answer him. Because they've just been spoon-fed the narrative. You know, that's it. They've been spoon-fed a narrative. Trump is a racist. Run with it. But nobody can give an example. And I'm not here to defend him. That's not really what I want to do. I just, you know, as crazy as it is, what I really want is I want some people on both sides to hear a message and either move to the middle or just get lost, man. Because I'm sick of it, man. I'm sick of the left with their social agenda. I'm sick of hearing, you know, conservatives, you know, bashing gays, making jokes about minorities. Well, okay, jokes about minorities might be too far. Making light of it. You know, making jokes in the midst of something like a riot. That's what I mean. Because comedy, I mean, is why I am the way I am. I might not be funny on here all the time, or ever maybe, but the subject matter just hasn't warranted that. But, you know, I grew up, man, on what people call woke TV nowadays. You know, I watched George Jefferson, a successful self-made man, and his strong wife, Wheezy. You know, I remember the neighbors, you know, the black and white couple, right? And she wore the pants, you know? And I don't want to see their community get used and abused like this any longer, man. I'm fucking sick of it. I'm fucking sick of the black community being used as a pawn. You know? The media always spinning things to tell a certain narrative, to try to keep them down. You know, because that's just bullshit, man. That's bullshit. When you actively work to keep somebody down, and I don't know, I don't see where the Republicans do that. I don't. I don't see that at all. I don't see that happening. We have young black Republicans now. That's something that should be celebrated. We don't tolerate police brutality. We don't tolerate it. We don't simply just wash it, just sweep it underneath the rug. Same thing with racism. You know, overt, covert. If we see it, we speak out. We don't accept it as a culture anymore. But the media really loves that narrative because it tells them what to write. And then they could turn around and use it for their political pals' advantages. They're doing a disservice. They really are. And if you look at the way things are being covered right now, you'll see that. You know, this needs to be about a man who lost his life. You know? And all the people affected by that. And all of the hardworking police officers out there that are going to suffer because of one police officer's actions. And possibly, the non-action by other officers. You know? But let's talk about it in a realistic way. Let's not stoke it. Let's not politicize it and weaponize it until other people out there can pile up a bunch of bricks and start some fires and incite a mob into the kind of behavior we've seen. And hey, take note. Take note. Before you sit there and bash somebody for this, take note and notice, yeah, there are a lot of young white dudes out there. I've seen some white women out there. It's all shapes and sizes and colors out there. These are looters and these are scumbags. That's what they are. They're people who are breaking your car windows and stealing what little change you have in the ashtray. They are the people who are about as hypocritical as you can get. They're out there right now protesting for the life of a black man. But yet they're the same group that will go out and use the N-word when referring to people like Candace Owens. They're a bunch of fucking liars, man. They're fed by one side, and they're stoked by the media, and that kind of shit needs to end. Because when that's over, then we could also turn our attention to the scumbags on the right side of the fence. The white supremacists. That's fine. You know, some people are entitled. You're entitled to your own beliefs. It's what you do with it. You know, and that's what needs to get squashed out. But as long as we're being distracted by these kind of things and led to certain reactions over these kind of things, we're never going to be able to sit down and have a conversation. And again, that's what the media wants to do. They want to keep us firmly in our camp. Left in your camp, right in your camp, black in your camp, white in your camp. That's what they want. They want us so divided that we can never come together. But that tide is already changing. That tide is already changing. They're going to lose this battle because, you know, one thing about America is we believe in equality. It's something that is ingrained in us. And if we can get to that day of pure equality, I think all of us will feel more American. But right now, I'm not ashamed to be American. I don't feel that way. I don't feel ashamed. I feel proud. I just hope that in the coming weeks and months, our president is able to follow through with what's going on in Hong Kong. Because as bad as the left is, and as bad as the media is, China is worse. They are our enemy. Make no mistake about it. They would invade us if they could invade us. And it's not really too far outside of the realm of reality to see the many different ways that they have already put in place the seeds of an invasion. They would love it. They want to control the world. Power mad people want to control more and more. You know, the Romans didn't just stop at the northern border of Italy. They went all the way to England. Alexander the Great, the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Incas. They all tried, the Native American tribes. Everybody tried to get more room. Look at Europe. I mean, their whole history was all about seizing and losing land. That's what everybody wants. You know? Now we've got everybody kind of agreeing that they're just going to stay in their own borders and make the best of what they've got. But there is one country out there that isn't, and that's China. So, you know, stay tuned because it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. I think you could say that about a lot of our issues here in America right now. But, you know, personally, things can get a lot better, a lot quicker. So if you're out there losing hope, or if you're in, those that anxious world of despair, man, you'll get through it. You will get through it. You'll come out. You're going to have your scars. You're going to have your battle injuries. I know I've got them. I've struggled. Man, I went through it all. I've seen some dark times, man. I made it, and I ain't nothing goddamn special. I'm just a man. That's it. I may be your 18th favorite masked hero. I really hope I am. But, man, I'm just a man. I made it. You can make it. And just remember, man, just try to get to both sides of the story before you make up your mind. It'll save us all a lot of grief. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to everybody out there. I know, it sounds pie-in-the-sky liberalism, doesn't it? But that's what I believe, man. Try to love everyone, man. Try to love everything. Look around you. Enjoy what's there. Take it in. Don't forget to look at nature. You know, there's beauty all around. And, you know, every now and then we need to take a deep breath of beauty and just chill out, man. So keep it cool. Copious out.